Alright, good morning everyone. Our group will be covering the science of Rick and Morty. We're going to start off with Ahmed here, discussing the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, and then I'm going to discuss the Schrodinger's cat and multiverse theory, and then we have Segal here introducing the force perspective, and then we're going to close off with Eddie with the misuse of science in Rick and Morty.
Okay, so I'm going to be covering Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. The uncertainty principle was introduced in 1927 by the German physicist Werner Heisenberg. And this states that if we know the exact position of a particle, we cannot know that exact velocity of that same particle. And how he came up to understand this was he wanted to see how particles move and interact with each other, and he discovered that if you observe a particle, it's gonna move and react like a particle. But if we're not observing a particle, it's gonna move like a wave, which is pretty trippy. And so if you take one measurement of that, so if you take the location or the velocity or like the momentum of that particle, it's going to be, you will not know, it's going to be undefined or uncertain. And so, we could get into like other theories that there are no particles and that everything around us is waves, but we really don't have time to cover that. We're going to discuss that with you. And so, this ties into Rick and Morty, the episode of Wrinkle in Time, where the gang break time. So, and they go into different parallel universes. So, in this, you can see that they're all in different universes. Each one is different. There's a different thing going on in each one. So, in the beginning of when they break the time, Morty can hear himself, and because Morty understands that there's something going on, but he doesn't know that they're in different parallel universes. But his sister Summer, she doesn't know, like she can't, like, because each one is different, she can't feel that there's more things going on, and because her perception of the world is different from Morty's, because he's been around Rick, and at the same time, Rick is trying to fix everything. He knows what's going on, so Rick tries to fix it. Rick tries to fix things, and how he came up to the conclusion on how they're going to fix it is that Morty and Summer are uncertain that who's Rick's favorite, and so he comes up with this plan. He comes up with this idea that they both are meaningless to him, so that both his favorite, and so that clears the uncertainty, and so it's pretty funny. And then so throughout the episode, there's some Rick does something that is very like not known for Rick, that he towards the end of the episode, Morty, like before they fix time, Morty's in danger, and so he like falls down this black hole, and Rick jumps after him, and he saves Morty's life. And so he's saying right here, I'm okay with this, be good, Morty, be better than me. And so Rick is just accepting his fate, he's ready to die. And he sees an opportunity to save himself, and so he begs God, like he asks God for forgiveness and to help him. And you wouldn't expect that from Rick, so I found that super interesting. And then once he does save himself, he like disrespects God and is like, "F God, there is no God," even though I believe God helped him, saved him, and yeah. So I thought that was super interesting, the character development I would see, because everybody thinks Rick is an atheist, but when in times of need, he turned to God when he didn't have the answer, so, which was pretty funny. And if you guys are still uncertain on what the uncertainty principle is, I have a little short video for you guys.
Today, I'm doing an experiment that demonstrates Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So here I have a green laser, and I'm firing it down towards the front of the room through a narrow slit. Now that slit can be adjusted so it can be made narrower or wider. And the laser spot is projected onto a screen behind it. So what do you think is going to happen to this spot on the screen as I narrow the slit? Well, let's have a look. You see exactly what you'd expect. The spot gets narrower and narrower. The sides are getting cut off by the slit. Makes complete sense. And if you stop there, you would never realize that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is at work. But if you keep going, something strange happens. As you make the slit even narrower, the spot starts to spread out. Isn't that incredible? You're making the slit narrower, and yet the spot on the wall is getting wider. The narrower you make it, the wider that spot on the wall becomes. To understand this, we have to look at Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
And I'm going to pass it on to Chelsea.
Alright, so next is Schrodinger's cat. Back in 1935, there's an Austrian physicist that had the thought experiment about right here, a meow, placing it in a Pokeball, a sealed Pokeball, and it has a 50% chance of killing the meow. And then the question is, after the cat is inside the Pokeball, is it dead or alive? Common sense tells us it's either dead or alive, right? But in quantum mechanics, that's not the case. It's in a thing called superposition, which states that it's both alive and dead at the same time. It's the superposition is the consequence of the dual particle and wave-like nature of all things. So, like in Heisenberg principle, this is also the case, because everything, all in matter, behaves like a wave also and a particle, right? And in order for a thing to have a wavelength, it has to, in order for the thing to have a wavelength, it's related to its momentum. And then the way that we don't observe this on the regular object is you see the regular object is just right there, right? It's not moving like a wave, like disturbance. It's because of the momentum of the object, because momentum is mass times velocity. And the higher the mass, the bigger the momentum is, and thus the shorter the wavelength, so you can really detect it on the regular object. But in the atoms, since they're very small, so you can see the wavelength of the electrons and stuff, and that is the explanation of the superposition. Next is the multiverse theory. It's the theory that states that everything that has more than one possible outcome, it splits the universe into two universes. That one of them has the one possible outcome, and then the other one has it. So in the Schrodinger's cat, in one world, when you check out the Pokeball, the meow is alive, and then the other one is dead. So this brings up to the science fiction behind Rick and Morty. In the Love Potion episode, there was the time that they destroyed their timeline, their universe. Everything turned into this kind of monster. So they had to use the portal gun to go to the different dimension, and where they died and basically replaced themselves on the universe and then lived there. Here's the video of it. I guess it's not working, but you've all watched that episode. So they buried themselves in that different dimension, and then they basically replaced themselves, and then just live through that dimension.
So I'll be talking about forced perspective with you guys. Forced perspective is an optical illusion technique that makes objects appear bigger or smaller than they are, or sometimes appear closer or further than they are. And forced perspective is used in TV, special effects, movies, and even photography. So here you see in one of the episodes, Rick and his family is fleeing after a bird person's wedding was crashed, and they were about to get arrested. So he's looking for another Earth that has a similar ecosystem to Earth, and he finds this planet, but doesn't realize that it's smaller than he thought it would be, and he bumps into it, which in real life that wouldn't be how it would went down. That's not a possibility, but they utilize forced perspective to kind of play a trick on people. And this brings up basically how television how we as humans interact with television, and how we sometimes believe certain things are true or however they are depicted in television. And this is the episode where the memory parasite and all these different people that show up in their memories, the parasite just grows and grows and grows, and all these people are here. So they believe that these people are real because of those memories implanted in their heads. And I use this to kind of make you question some of the things that you watch on TV. So every show has a purpose, but we as humans have a purpose when watching a show. So some people have that escapist mentality of where you want to watch something to kind of just get entertained, get out of it. But a lot of shows really they question reality, and they give you their construct of how reality is constructed and how reality is believed to be. And that sometimes leads us to just kind of take what we see on TV and run with it, rather than question its realness and interacting with it in the sense of, could this be true? Is this true? How is it applied in real life? So that goes through all the parasites to see.
So I'm going to be discussing the misuse of science and also misinterpretation of it. First, we all know that science helps us in our day-to-day activities. We can see science in medicine. It helps us with health issues. It helps us with technology and a whole bunch of stuff like traveling to the moon, making new inventions, and a whole lot of good stuff. But there's also a misuse of science, and I want to talk about a term known as science exploitation. Basically, it's using science as a medium in bringing about financial revenue or whatever your purpose is. So basically, misinforming people or giving false information of science to people in general to gain a purpose out of it, to gain something out of it. The reason why I have you guys staring at this head for a reason is I was going to see whatever you guys are going to sing to it, so it actually takes our earth to the galactical music first. But Justin did a good job describing cosmic horror to it. I'm going to talk about how the alien head misuses science. So pretty much they had a prominence, and they came over to Earth basically looking for ways of essentially looking for good music in order for them to live and grow. They depend on music. And in this scene right here, the head approaches Earth, and Rick thought it was a good idea for them to make music, but unfortunately, all musicians and everyone died in an earthquake. So Rick and I believe it was Ice Cube and Morty made a song, and eventually the head transformed. The head took Earth over to the galactical space for them to compete. The sad news was Earth didn't win that contest. But what I'm trying to come to is that the head used forces like disrupting the Earth's gravity, so the Earth pretty much didn't have any gravity at that moment, and also it started causing a lot of world disasters like earthquakes and a whole bunch of like natural disasters that people did not really know about. So some other people kind of diverted their attention, and they thought of the head as a god. It brought about headism, which people started believing the head was actually God because of all the stuff that it was doing. The second slide. So the second slide is about Plutonians. So basically, the 1% of the Plutonians that were rich and that were wealthy decided that in order for them to gain profitably, to gain financially, they were going to convince the mass of the Plutonians into convincing them that Pluto is still a planet, which we all know is not. Basically, they wanted to extract all the resources from the planet, and the planet was not in a good shape and was deteriorating. So they found a good way of bringing Morty's dad. They kidnapped him actually. They kidnapped him, brought him over to the Plutonians just to tell them one sentence, that Pluto is a planet. Eventually, he comes to his senses that it's not really a planet, and really science is merely based on conviction. So sometimes it's just what you believe in, and that's a good scene that depicts the mysteries of science. And the last scene, which is a video, and I'm going to end with that, is don't play it. Sorry. It's basically this scene was in episode 1, season 1, episode 6. Pretty much Morty was going to attend a flu season dance, and he wanted to like have an affair with his crush, but he didn't know how to come about it. So he approached Rick, and Rick gave him a love potion. But the thing is, Rick didn't tell him about the side effects of the love potion, which is flu. So unknowingly, Morty goes to the flu season dance, and he uses it as intended, but it has its ripple effects. And this video is going to just depict how it was being misused and how it affected everyone. Created by countries just for a simple war, and a prime example would be the Chernobyl, the Chernobyl experience. Well, basically, what happened was in Soviet Union, a little malfunction happened, and it caused a chemical reaction that affected a lot of people, and to this day, people suffer the extreme detrimental effects of that. So, in general, science is a good thing, but we all have to know how to use it for our own purposes. Thank you.
That concludes it. Any questions? Ali?
Can you guys think of any other examples in the media where science is misused or for course perspectives and stuff?
Oh.
Like to, spread lies or something?